I'd like to welcome you to BOI Meets Wellness, a podcast that discusses the complexities, celebrations, and challenges of building a wellness ritual as a BOI, a person who is born obviously incredible. You are now listening to BOI Meets Wellness with poet, motivational speaker, and wellness lover, Evolve Benton.
BOI, born obviously incredible, especially when you wear it pretty.
Welcome to BOI Meets Wellness. Thank you for listening to the podcast. We appreciate you. If you'd like to support BOI Meets Wellness, head over to boygearstore.com and purchase some of our incredible merchandise. We have some amazing tanks and new notebooks for the summer workout and reflection. Today on the show, we are welcoming Kortney to our community. Kortney is a beautiful Black trans man, an award-winning entrepreneur, and a scholar. Before we jump into the interview with Kortney, let's talk a little bit about wellness. My wellness tip for the week is to go through your sock drawer. No, really. The tip is to declutter. I was reading an article from the New York Times about clutter, and it stated, clutter is an overabundance of possessions that collectively create chaotic and disorderly living spaces, according to Joseph Ferrari, a professor of psychology at DePaul University in Chicago, who studies the causes of clutter and the impacts on emotional well-being. A cluttered home can literally lead to a stressful home. Many of us are spending more time in the house than usual due to shelter in place and just our environment during the pandemic. So it's important for our well-being goals to make sure that we're spending some time decluttering our situation. I started with my sock drawer and underwear, y'all, and I was so amazed about how much information I had piled up. There's an amazing book called The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up. That's The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up, about decluttering that my partner and I have used for guidance. I'll be sure to leave that in the show notes. So get in there, declutter your life, start the process. Don't shame yourself. Don't guilt yourself into it. But realize that that headache you might be having, that heaviness, that depression might be linked to your environment. Today's episode is brought to you by Mar Media Productions. Mar Media is a media production company that produces, publishes, and uplifts the stories, art, and journeys of queer and trans people of color and the people who make our lives incredible. Now for our interview with one of my faves, Kortney. Hello, world. Welcome to BOI Meets Wellness. This is Evolve Benton, and I am born obviously incredible. I have an incredible human being on the line today. Kortney, thank you for being here for the BOI Meets Wellness podcast. To introduce yourself to our community, can you just give us your full name, your pronouns, and what brings you joy?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, first of all. My name is Kourtney Ziegler. My pronouns are he, him, or king. What brings me joy? I have so many things, actually, but I'm going to say my dog is definitely one of them.
That's beautiful. The dog therapy. I mean, especially now that we're like, a lot of us are in shelter in place. I know at first my dogs were looking at me like, when you leaving? I mean, are you really here? Like, do we got to share snacks all the time now? So I know that puppy love is real. So tell the audience just a little bit about yourself. Where did you grow up and where do you live now?
Yeah, I'm born and raised in Compton, California, which is really awesome. The hospital I was actually, like a lot of people can't actually say they were actually born in Compton anymore. There are no more hospitals in the city of Compton. And the hospital that I was born in, I think it went out of business in the mid-90s. And I was born in the 80s. So, yeah, I currently live in Oakland, California, trying to count down my days to get out of here, hoping to become an expat sooner than later. Coronavirus definitely put a wrench in that plan for 2020. So, but currently living in Oakland and making the best of it for now. So.
Nice. And you said expat? Is that what you called it?
Yes, expat.
What does that mean? Explain to me and explain to the community.
Yeah, a person who is no longer living in the United States as an American citizen, I guess. And what is it? Is it expatriate? Let me actually look up what it means. I've just been using like kind of the short handle term.
Thank you for doing
that research. A person who lives outside their, expat, expatriate, exactly. A person who lives outside their native country. So I want to be an expat of the United States. I was hoping to be outside of the country this year, but coronavirus really threw my life down, as I'm sure it is for everybody's. And so I'm hoping to either move to the continent, is my number one choice, some beautiful country in Africa, And that's kind of where I'm working, hoping to get towards sometime in the future.
That's really exciting. Yeah, I remember seeing your journey a little bit on Instagram. I think you were in South Africa and it just looked like it was
Yeah.
beautiful. Some very loving folks. I was just actually watching a YouTube video with my partner about this couple. They call themselves On Our Rich Journey or something like that, that we follow this Black couple that just moved to Portugal. And they were saying that
Oh,
they could
wow.
pretty much live with a family of four and their kids go to private school. They live in like the middle of the city
Yep.
for about $50,000 a year. Compared
Yep.
to when they were trying to live in the Bay Area where it would cost them like just $100,000 and that was just their housing, right? Like that's not even looking at like
Exactly.
the food and everything else that they need. So I think that that's not only responsible, but very forward thinking. And I feel like that's just the type of individual you are, like, to be honest. So I want folks to really get to know this story. So can you tell us a little bit where this seed of entrepreneurship or just doing your own thing started?
Yeah. I think it's just innate in me. I'm a visionary. Like I finally have accepted that that's what I am and that I'm okay with recognizing that in myself. And that I'm like, I really have a talent of seeing the future and not kind of like a really, like in a playful way, like I'm like a psychic or anything, but I really think that I have a very gifted skill of kind of seeing the bigger picture of kind of putting different puzzle pieces together, whether that be kind of like socio-political or, you know, entrepreneurial, but just really kind of seeing something that isn't there and how do I kind of create a solution to bring that thing that isn't there. And so that's just been a part of everything that I've been able to do so far in my life. And I've been very, very lucky to kind of cultivate this skill as I've gotten older in my endeavors. It's really helped me an entrepreneur, which is something that I didn't necessarily thought I would become, but life has pushed me in that direction in so many ways. I've never actually had a real job. I'm 39 years old. I've never actually like kind of had like a 9 to 5. So I've been very lucky about that. I've always created my own jobs. I've always built companies and been able to like kind of build something that's successful and take care of myself, but in ways that have building things that have been useful for other people. That's been really cool. I don't want to ramble, so I guess I can talk about myself in so many ways. But yeah, I just know that like I possess a very special skill about being able to see things that aren't there and being able to leverage that in the work that I do. A great example is one of my last projects is Appalachian. For those who don't know, it was a crowdfunding platform where folks could link their debit cards. So wherever they were spending money at, our app would collect their spare change and use it to automatically donate to a bail fund to get people out of jail. At its time, we launched 2 years ago, which was amazing. It's an amazing reception because people are like, "What? You kind of taking the fair exchange model that folks were using for investing, and using that for something for social good, specifically to get Black folks out of jail." And it was really awesome. And now we're in a moment where we had a kind of massive protests around the world, specifically in the United States, about a couple of weeks ago or all last month, and bail funds were at the center of the conversation. Fortunately, Appalachian wasn't able to be in. We were impacted by coronavirus. We were a spending app, and once the country went into lockdown, we lost like 85% of our revenue.
Oh, wow.
Because yeah,
I didn't realize
nobody
y'all
was
were
spending.
impacted that much. Wow. Because it's all
Yeah,
based off
we
of spare
became
change. So if someone doesn't
spending.
get in,
Exactly. Exactly. We were our revenue was our model was based on people had to go and spend money, and most of our money actually came from people traveling and people spending their money, not even with online shopping, but shopping in person. And so all of our data was pointing to, wow, the most amount of money that people were bringing to the app were through travel and retail spending. And so those were the two main kind of spaces that were impacted once people were told to shelter in place in the United States. And so that severely, like, it's just like one day we were like, oh no, now, our thousands of users can't spend, even though some folks are spending online. It wasn't enough to keep the company going. I had to make the decision to be like, well, it doesn't make sense to go further in debt when we don't know when this is going to end. And it's something that's unprecedented. Like there was no kind of like, I'm sure a number of folks that I know, like for colleagues who have platforms, actually their companies went insolvent as well because there was no business model to plan for global pandemic and economic collapse. I don't know anybody that had that in their business plan. Like, okay, if this happens, we got this covered. That it was just so unexpected that I had to make the decision to it made most sense to cease operations in April. And so I had to lay off my team, which really sucks. I had to lay myself off, which really sucks.
I'm sorry, fam. I know that was like hard. I know that was hard.
It was hard. It was hard, but I also know that I created something that was impactful. By the time I did have to kind of turn the company off, we had raised over $1 million, got thousands of Black folks out of jail. And so, the work that was done was amazing. And what was also amazing was what I was talking about was at the time of the protests and things that were happening in honor of George Floyd's death last month in the United States. Bail funds were the center of the conversation. Like bail funds raised millions of dollars. I know one organization raised $25 million overnight. So people were like, where do we send our money to?
Yeah, I was sending money out too.
Exactly. So people were like, where do we send money to? Bail funds. And so I was like actually like honored that Appalachian was part of that conversation to even have, the lexicon of bail funds in ways that people I don't think really understood that they existed before. And so despite the direction of kind of what happened with the Appalachian as a business, I'm really grateful and honored to have been behind something that has really changed how we interpret what bail is and how other folks have been able to benefit from, kind of this new awareness of how folks can help. Because I don't think being in this country for all of my life and seeing protests, I've never heard that people were donating to bail funds before to get people out of jail during protests. When Ferguson was happening, that wasn't kind of the center of conversation. People weren't like, where did we send money to? Do we send it to bail funds? No, we're sending it to the people on the streets, the people that need it, the grassroots organizers, right? Nobody was talking about bail funds. And so I feel really excited and honored that people were helping folks that needed it the most, that were doing bail funds. That was really cool. Everything has this weird, strange silver lining. I'm a person that never...
Because it's like your business didn't fail, your business didn't fail.
Exactly.
It's just that the economy failed, right? So it wasn't that the business model didn't work. It was just that, like, this is something you couldn't prepare for. That's why I'm like, everyone that has all these shows and these podcasts and these recession-proof business, I'm like, nah, like, I know people who are doing really, really good, amazing business, and it's not about the recession. This is a pandemic,
This is a pandemic. There's nothing you and as someone who, again, like I said, I had to make a smart decision to be like, well, it doesn't look like our government is going to take care of us economically at all. So many folks didn't get the PPP loan. Appalachian was one of them. They actually ran out of money. We were literally told, there's no more money. We ran out of money. And then see billionaires got money, and so many businesses that I know that were doing we were doing well. And that's what's kind of crappy about it. So many other people that I know, colleagues, were doing really well in their business. And then to just one day say you can no longer operate without any kind of backup plan from your government, which you pay your business taxes to, you know what I mean? Which you do the right things to, doesn't help you in this moment. A lot of folks aren't coming back after this. It's not just Appalachian. A lot of folks are not coming back after this. And that's what's really devastating, I think, for folks who are entrepreneurs like you. There's just no way that anybody could have prepared on their business plan, balance sheets, whatever, that like your business model is going to be severely affected because the economy is it's shut down. So how does anyone operate? Of course, there are certain businesses that are in some ways recession proof or whatever, depression proof. I think we're in a depression. We're beyond that now.
I think that they're saying recession to not make people feel scared. You know what I mean? Like, I think that the language of using depression makes people, but we're seeing it, right? Like, we're seeing like industries, businesses that have never faltered fall, We're seeing people who've been like doing pretty well, doing horribly. We're seeing like heads of family members die off from the pandemic, right? Like the breadwinners.
Exactly.
Like there's like a really big shift in wealth happening. And I don't think people see it because we're in the moment, stuck inside, or you know, emotionally exhausted. So one thing that you mentioned that I wanted to tap in on that I think is like it's almost like a thread in the DNA of Black, trans, and gender nonconforming folks, and this is just something I've came up with, is that we have to create our path to survive, right? Like you said, I kind of was pushed into entrepreneurship, and this is something that I've heard from several folks who have came onto the show. Like, oh, well, I didn't have a place to stay, so I had to figure out how to make money, right? Like it wasn't like some, oh, I want to go this like sexy thing that we have going on right now. I want to start my own business. It was like, no, I got to figure out how to do it. So as a Black trans man, and you know, I want people to know the history of what you've done. Like you created one of the first films to really showcase the Black trans experience. As a Black trans man, what advice can you give to folks just on living and the visibility that comes with being a part of this experience, right? Because I think that can be just as challenging. Like some people see the glory of it, like, oh, you're the first, and that's amazing, and you get all the props. But there's also the other side of the coin where it's like you're this visible experience that people get to tap into, and sometimes that, like, you know, your safety and all of those things that come up with that.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think my journey has been very, and I'm very transparent about everything that happened with me professionally. It's important for me to be vocal about my experience because I want people to know that I work very hard in the things that I do, and with that,
and they should put some respect on your name. They should put some respect on your name.
That too. They should always do that, like 100%. But I think that with anyone who is a pioneer, you're right. There is a kind of like this double side where, you know, you're able to open doors for other folks because of you kind of like literally obliterated that door. So you created a pathway for someone else. But at the same time, as a pioneer, you create things that sometimes the world isn't ready for. So you don't necessarily get the credit in a way that you should. And so that's what I struggle with all the time in my journey. I create things because, again, I'm a visionary and it's just a part of my nature. But it's and it creates spaces for other folks who are like me or who are not like me to kind of like follow in that pathway. But at the end of the day, I'm still like a Black trans person that like doesn't always get the recognition that I deserve or the support that I deserve. And so it's like this weird space and like, man, now I have to work even harder to let folks know that yeah, I did that, which is weird. It's kind of like my best example is like when Little Richard passed away a few weeks ago. 2020 has been terrible. Like, oh my God.
So trash, Jesus. So trash.
Like, it needs to go away already. But one of the things that Little Richard would do wherever he was, like, there were so many clips of him start going around on the internet of the day of his death. And in every clip that I saw, he was just like, you know, I'm the architect of rock and roll. Like he had to remind people all the time. And it was just part of like what he would, you know, it was part of his like kind of persona that he would like let you know who he was all the time. And even if we knew who he was, he's still going to tell you what he did because it was important for him, but it's also important for his legacy and for everybody around who has benefited from his work and his labor and those folks that have been inspired from his work and also that have inspired him across his journey. It was very important for him to say those things. And I see myself very much in that same regard. And like, I'm consistently letting folks know, you know, I did that, I did that. Because it's really important for me to know because I don't think, and it's something I talk about all the time, that men like me are as recognized in the ways that we are deserving of. And I'm not sure what that is. I mean, we can go into kind of like, you know, theories about what that is, a patriarchy and gender and masculinity, and we can like throw those words out all day and talk about it. But at the end of the day, there's something to be said that like men like me aren't really recognized for our achievements in the ways that we should. And so I'm consistently letting folks know what I've done, but it gets exhausting to the point where I'm like, man, I wish I didn't have to always, but I always do. So there is like this weird space of like being a pioneer, but also like being the person that has to being your own cheerleader at the same time while you're the pioneer. It's like this weird space.
Yeah, well,
I personally
I want you to
deal with.
know that, this is the reason you're here on the show. Like, Boy Meets Wellness is all about talking and discussing the stories of people who are born obviously incredible. And, if Still Black, if your film didn't exist, Boy Meets Wellness wouldn't exist, because I would have never wanted to do my film, right? Like it took me seeing other people actually, like, not just doing it, but doing it successfully. Right. Like, and what
Mm-hmm.
I mean by successfully is that it actually got to me, because I know there's so many people who did films, like, even when I was like in college, but they never put it out. Right. Like, it stayed on that
Mm-hmm.
laptop or that notebook. So I think it takes initiative and courage. So can you tell our audience just a
For
little bit
sure.
about your style as a filmmaker, and what made you want to, like, do that in particular, like highlight those particular stories?
Yeah, I was in grad school and beginning my medical transition in my 20s, like my mid 20s. And I didn't know what to expect, I guess, physically. And I didn't know any trans men. I didn't know any Black trans men at all, like in my world, personally, or just visibly anywhere. And this was early 2000, so trans wasn't popular as it is, I guess, in ways that it's become now. There weren't any, can't even say I knew of any trans people on in television roles or like anything that was like kind of like I couldn't be like, man, remember this in 2007 or 2006? Can't really say that that would exist, but I knew who I was, and so it was important for me to kind of like find other tell the stories of the men who I might become. And so I was running a really popular blog at 25 years old, and it was called Black Academic, and it was me using
I
the
didn't know that was your
blogging world, which is
blog.
yeah, I had a multiple award-winning blog, Black Academic, and every time I said that, people were like, that was you. I was like, yeah, that was my blog. That was when blogging was just starting to. I've been an internet person ever since I got a computer. So when I was a teenager, and so blogging was happening. It was really becoming this really popular space, and I was like one of the leaders in that space, in the blogging space. And so I used that space to find the men in my film. And I was able to find subjects, and I really just wanted to tell their story, and created Still Black, the Portrait of Black Trans Men, the documentary, first ever documentary about Black trans men, which is awesome. It continues to screen around the world. It's 12 years old now. I released it in 2007. Yeah, it's about 12 years old now. And it's still an amazing film. I think that really does a service in kind of centering the voices of Black trans men who don't get censored any other time at all.
Exactly.
Like,
Exactly.
and don't get any recognition or support or their flowers or whatever. And so that was kind of unexpected. I wasn't expecting that to be kind of like the future of trans, when I was 26 years old, now being a 39-year-old and seeing just how even more marginalized Black trans men are. It's kind of, again, disappointing, but it is what it is. And so, yeah, I personally wanted to create a living document that told the stories of these men and their experiences and how they came to be who they were and who they are. Important for me to show a variety of sexualities. So not all the men identify as straight. Some of them are gay. Some of them are bi. That was super important. It was important for me to show a variety of ages. There's like the youngest guy was like 20 something. The eldest guy was in their they're in their 60s now. I'm actually doing a crowdfunding of GoFundMe for them,
Nice.
which is really important. Three of the men are like in their mid 60s now. They're elders. And right now is a moment of crowdfunding. You see a lot of people raising money. And I personally feel, and I'll probably get shit for this because I say a lot of things that I think a lot of other people don't want to say, but I say it because I have nothing to lose, is that I think that it's very interesting that when people who identify as a trans man and who happen to be Black say they need any kind of specific help in the world, they don't get it. They're silenced. They're immediately called misogynist if you say anything that like centers yourself and like your lived experience and say, hey, this is what I go through as a trans man My experience, I experience depression. I sometimes want to kill myself. I have nothing. I don't have a job. None of those things really matter to like kind of the overall trans community, I want to say. And that's really fucked up in so many ways. It's like so fucked up and so infuriating to me because I see men like Tyler Broadus, for example, who is one of the guys in Still Black, and he's a lawyer. He's the first person to testify at the Senate about being a trans person and being discriminated against at his job and wanting to. He was testifying against in defense of Employment Non-Discrimination Act. About a couple of weeks ago, the Supreme Court ruled that you can no longer fire people for being trans. Like trans people have federal protecting rights.
Yep.
Now, right? But nobody said thank you, Kyler. Nobody said, good job, Kyler Broadus. Thank you. He did that in like 2012. He spoke in the Senate. He's like been consistently advocating for all of us, and like you don't see the trans community giving him shit. You don't see them saying anything. You don't see them saying thank you to him.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's almost like an expectation when you think about it, an expectation of the labor.
Yeah, it's almost like if you're, and I'm gonna say this, if you're not a trans woman, nobody gives a fuck about what you've done. That's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't care who disagrees with what I say. That's what the current discourse is happening. That's what the current perception is, that if you are not a trans woman, what you do does not matter in the trans community. And that is infuriating. I think it's disrespectful to our elders. I think it's problematic. I think it creates hypervisibility for trans women and like more labor for them even to do. And it's a problem. And so like there's this moment where like someone could start a fundraiser and be like, I'm a Black trans woman that has nothing. And people will like throw their money at it, rightfully so, as they should. I have no problem with that. Good. Get your money. If a Black trans man is like, I have nothing, nobody gives a fuck. Nobody cares. And it's mind-blowing to me. It's mind-blowing to me. And
Yeah.
I don't like that. And so I do a lot of work utilizing my platform to talk about like Black trans men beyond Still Black. Because that was over 12 years ago. Like, right? It may still circulate, but the conversations have gone beyond that. We have trans millionaires now. We have,
exactly.
trans people with trans. So the conversations have become more elevated, but at the same time, they've erased men like me, and so that's infuriating. And so right now, I'm raising $100,000 for 3 men from the film who are elders and who need support. Ethan is one of the guys, and he's disabled, and he uses the wheelchair to get around. And he's like, I need a new wheelchair. He's like, I'm so grateful. Thank you, Kortney, for, using your platform to help us raise money because I need a new wheelchair. And I'm just like, you should have a wheelchair. You should not be like, there should have been 10 GoFundMe's already saying Ethan needs a wheelchair. Where are they?
Yeah.
Why is nobody saying our name? Why is Kyler like not having money when now trans people are protected by the, government? Like, why is he not getting featured in essays and articles? Why are you guys not doing things for him? Why is it that like any random person can be like, I'm starting this organization, no qualifications, nobody knows you in the community, you've done absolutely nothing, and then you can raise like $200,000 for trans women, like, which again, rightfully so, you should. I have nothing against it, but I'm finding an issue that like the disposal of Black trans men who have really been pioneers in the space and have like changed my life and has changed the life for all of us as trans queer people, that they get discarded and that nobody gives a fuck about us and nobody gives a fuck about them. And that's a problem. And I feel like there needs to be more conversations about that. I feel like there's like very much so a very similar experience that in the community about people who are assigned female at birth and who may not be trans, but who are just assigned female at birth. It's kind of complete disregard for the work that we do. And I'm personally tired of it. And I feel like I wish more people would talk about it. I know that when I talk about it, I'm silenced immediately and I'm called a misogynist and I'm called a problem. And I'm like, I'm not the problem. I can see the issues. I'm just a person who, I have a voice and so I'm willing to talk about it. And so
and
when
you have
I'm
that
asked about
platform.
Still Black,
It's important for you to
exactly.
share your lived experience. And what I think is interesting, Kortney, is like this instance where people are saying you can't you can't take up for your own liberty and your own space and your own labor. Like, you have to give free energy to people. And I think that the reason that people utilize this, especially when it comes to Black trans men, is because they have like a lack of awareness. So oftentimes when people want to talk about masculinity, it's also always about toxicity. It's never about
Exactly.
Black male like masculinity and joy, celebration, wellness. And I think it was Gender Justice LA did a survey with a bunch of like, mostly they didn't label it as like trans men, but it was like, I think trans masculine. So it was some gender nonconforming folks stated in there. But it was seen that a lot of folks were experiencing harm. A lot of folks were experiencing domestic violence that they had never even spoke of. And when they did try to speak of it, people either laughed or told them that they had did harm and deserved the harm that they had received.
Exactly.
So we have even data that is not, that is showcasing what you're saying is true. And I think that we even see it even in like films like Disclosure. I really enjoyed that film that Laverne Cox made. And I have friends. I knew you were going to say that. And I have friends who were connected to it. But that segment where they even talked about trans masculinity, it was so short compared to the history of the film. And we know that there's so much more history to tell. And the fact that it's centered in Black trans women, and that this part of it was very much like, it was almost like a side piece of dessert compared to the film, right? Like, we could have had our own film.
And exactly. And you don't see the community going, that's not okay. You don't see the community going like, hey, you know what? We should not exclude the work of Black trans men. You wouldn't be here in this film if it wasn't for them. But no, they don't. And that's what's mind blowing to me. Like, that blows my fucking mind, is that like, to me, the idea of community, and maybe because I'm a trained scholar, so I always fight who came before me. It's like, I personally cannot. I always talk about the work of those, even if I don't like them as a person. I cannot not erase them from the work, the legacies that they had created, because if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be able to be in my spot to dislike them in the first place. I wouldn't have that agency. So like, it's a really weird moment that I think that like I will forever be very vocal about trans men and trans masculine people, because, and thank you for bringing up that gender justice data, because you're right, there is information that's like showing that I get why people have a little bit of hesitancy of engaging on trans masculinity or masculinity in general, because it's like this kind of like, unless you're a guy who's talking about, I'm such a toxic man, nobody wants to hear what you have to say. But you can't say like, you know, I'm an intentional man. I'm not toxic. I actually do work to not be a toxic human being because it's important for me just as a person. And I think a lot of trans men in general actually are very intentional about who they are as men. And I don't feel like that gets enough, not recognition, because that's not the right word, but acknowledgement, because those conversations are important for all of our liberations, for all of our kind of like, how do we move forward in any like way that recognizes all of us as people and all of our humanity and honors that and allows us ways to kind of interact and engage with folks according to their terms. How can we know that if we don't have, if we're not listening to what folks are saying, if we're not saying, you know, my experience is not that of a cisgender toxic male. I don't know what that is. I don't know what it means to be that man. But I do know what it means to be assigned female at birth and then become a man that I want to be, and like really go through the world of recognizing what privilege means, recognizing what it means to harm others, recognizing that you know, my body looks different, and for some people that may be threatening, but understanding those things and then having space to talk about that so that the community knows that like, yeah, you know, like there are men that are doing the work and are really like, again, living very intentional lives, and how can we kind of like look to them to understand what it means to not be toxic. And it blows my mind that those conversations, again, rarely happen. And if they do happen, you're right, people get laughed at, people get silenced, people told that you don't matter, you don't experience violence, you don't experience harm. It's like, well, we do. We do. We're people. We deal with people who are hurting just as anybody else. You know, like Black people of all genders are hurting. And so like we may hurt each other sometimes. And so, but like, let's talk about what that means, and let's talk about what it means to be someone who is harmed. And we don't expect that person to experience harm because of the way they look, the way that they move through the world. And so that bothers me that we don't we never have those conversations on a macro level in the trans discourse. Trans discourse is centered around trans women and what they experience. And I think that we can be more inclusive and include everybody because we're all experiencing harm. We're all dying. We're all being killed and we're all dying. And I just don't understand why people don't get that. And and so it bothers me that there isn't more standing up for different genders that are trans, that are not that do not identify as women. That there's no room for people to have conversations, even people that identify as non-binary. I feel like we should have more conversations about what that means and how they experience harm and like how they experience joy and like like all of these kind of conversations for us to be moving forward and as any word of the kind of the idea of community.
We don't want to start the
so.
erasure that we've already seen, in other communities and our own. And
Exactly.
I think that's what happens when we have people telling history from a particular lens. So, that's why I wanted you to come on the show, because I was like, I need you to not only to share your story, but I want your story to be shared while we can give you these roses, not at the end of your life or at a part of your journey that is painful or harmful. Like, it doesn't have to be trauma porn for us to like be able to like really talk about your journey and your story. So thank you for always like centering that and bringing it back to the conversation, because I think a lot of people are fearful of being called like misogynistic or all these various things, and I don't think they're willing to push. But I also think like you have a privilege because you said you're connected to like this scholarly level where you can really challenge people in that arena, where a lot of other Black trans men, I was just interviewing Pat Manuel not that long ago, and he's a boxer, one of the first to be seen in the professional realm. And he's like, I didn't go to college, so a lot of this I had to learn on my own. So the question I have for you, as we're shifting just a little bit into your journey as an entrepreneur, is what are some of the challenges and celebrations of being a founder? Because a lot of folks who are listening to the podcast are folks who might be thinking about stepping out into that realm. And I know, me and you, we had dinner, and thank you for that. I was able to pick your brain, and you really had some good stuff around like just thinking about stepping into the arena of calling yourself a founder or starting a business.
Just doing it. I think my whole journey is always unfortunately tied to my trans identity, which I try to separate it, but it's kind of like difficult sometimes in terms of funding. I've been very lucky that everything that I've been building, for those who are listening don't know, I spent the last years in the tech space, in the last 5-6 years building software. Before Appalachian, I was building a platform called Aerial Spaces, which was like actually a Zoom killer. It's funny, you're like, I wish there was an alternative. And I was like, yeah, I built it. We actually sold some of that intellectual property, which is really awesome. And no longer building that, which is, again, like, it was really awesome to be a part of the team that saw the future. We were doing virtual events, virtual conferences, and virtual everything with the virtual platforms we would do this stuff on before COVID-19 hit. This was years ago. So I've been very lucky to be able to kind of like build the things that I think are important and that I see, and without needing people's, okay, you can go do it. I think as anybody that's an entrepreneur, that's the basis of being an entrepreneur. You go and do things, you solve problems where other people aren't going to do the work. They may have an idea, but they're not going to like actually going to figure out how to like make that idea happen. And so I've been very lucky that I have that kind of tenacity in me. I don't think I can ever do anything else with my life but be an entrepreneur and kind of continue launching projects, whether they fail or succeed or not. And I've had a lot of failures. I think a lot of folks, if you don't have anything where it didn't work out at the time, you're not really an entrepreneur, because it's not going to work out all the time. You may be too early, you may be too late. Your idea may suck. Someone may have already done it better, and you may never actually like figure out the solution to the problem that you're trying to solve. And I've, over my journey, kind of ran into all those issues as well, but kind of come out on the other side being a much more sophisticated entrepreneur and much more willing to understand that, it's really just about just stepping forward and taking the first step of doing anything, of any idea you may have. and just making it happen. And once you do that first step, it's like you're already making it happen. Like it's happening. You're doing it. So that's kind of like how I move forward as a founder and as an entrepreneur. But again, like being who I am, it hasn't been the easiest because I work in tech. I don't know personally any other Black trans founders in tech where I live out here in the Bay. And I know Black trans folks in the space, in the industry. And I launched an organization in 2013 called Trans Hack. The first tech organization focused on trans folks in the space. And we did a lot of excellent work in getting trans people jobs. And so some of those folks still have jobs to this day and like kind of like switch careers, moving into tech. And so that was awesome. But still, I didn't really meet any Black trans men who were founders and who were starting their own companies. But
did you start off in tech, Kortney? Is that where you have your PhD, or did you do like a boot camp? Like, how did you get into doing software engineering?
Yeah, so I'm self-taught software developer. And yeah, so at 15, I got my computer. Like 14 years old, I got a computer. 15 was my birthday, and I really started like just being addicted to the internet from then. It was then that I was learning how to do web pages and build little tiny programs. But all of my degrees are about ethnic studies, master's in ethnic studies, a master's in African American studies, and a PhD in African American studies. So all of my work has been, and my bachelor's is in film. So all of my work has been kind of artsy, specifically about Black folks, not necessarily tech at all. But once I had graduated with my PhD, I was living in Oakland, and I went to a tech event. It was a film tech event, and there was no folks like me. And it was a hackathon about filmmaking, and I was the only filmmaker, or one of the few filmmakers in the room, and it was all software engineers. And like, I wasn't being listened to, and I was the filmmaker at the filmmaking hackathon. And I actually like ditched my team. I didn't even show up to the last day to start our project because I felt so like not useful to the team. And I was like, and that was a light bulb went off in my head. And I was like, okay, if I'm even in a space where it's a filmmaking event, mind you, it's a tech event, but it's centered filmmaking, and I'm not even being asked for my expertise as a filmmaker, then I know that like beyond film and the spaces in tech, that people aren't being asked for their expertise if they look like me. So what can I do to address that? And so after that event, I got the idea to launch Trans Hack. I didn't know anybody in tech. I literally didn't know anybody, but I did my research and I found some folks to reach out to, and I just cold emailed folks, and I was like, hey, I'm the filmmaker. I've been successful in these kind of projects, but now I want to do this big. Can you help me out? I really like your work. I know that you're doing it was like at the beginning of diversity and tech stuff. Can you work with me? I want to do this organization for trans people. And so I got 2 folks on board. I got Mozilla on board, and like literally I didn't know anybody. Like in about a month, I had like a team because I just went and found people, and that's how I started working in the tech industry. Now it's 2013, and I've been working in tech ever since.
Wow, so really a non-traditional route, man. Like people,
I didn't go to any boot camp or anything.
People who are hearing this, I hope y'all hearing these gems. Like you ain't got to spend your life worth to like figure out your journey, right? Like, and if you do, be intentional about who you're doing that with, right? Because I think even if Trans Hack was still going, that would be a perfect platform for some folks. But really being intentional about like who you want to build with and how you want to build out your journey. Like some folks think like just because they started in African American studies, they can't go over into tech, or they could never be an entrepreneur. And I'm always trying to push back on that. I think because we're from California, we just got a little bit of an extra edge to us, where everybody here always has 15 jobs. So it's kind of like if you have one job, people be looking at you like, what? But what else do you do? It's like, no, I'm just a pharmacist. That's it. Like, wait, you don't have a side business?
Exactly.
So let's talk a little bit.
That's key. You could do. I'm sorry to cut you off.
Oh no. Go on.
No, it was thanks for making that point. I think you said it even better. That it's, whatever you want to do, just find the folks that are doing that and reach out to them. That's literally what I did. the least people can tell you is no, I can't help you. So all they can say is no. And like, I don't think people get that. People don't understand. I get really inspired when randos email me, actually, because I'm like, sometimes I don't help
I'm
folks.
the
Sometimes
rando,
I
everyone.
really, I'm like, no, yeah. But I mean, like, random people, like, I get a lot of people who reach out to me and like, I want to do this, or I've seen you done this, and really wealthy people too. Like, I've given advice to people who are like have way more money than I do, who have way less money than I do, but people are always asking for my advice. And I find that really awesome because I think it takes a lot to like, find out somebody who they are and ask them like how they did what they did. And most people will be like, this is what I did. This is exactly what you need to do. Or you can go to this person and do this. And that's exactly what happened to me. I was able to just email folks and be like, I want to do this. You don't know me, but maybe you should know me. And they're like, okay. And they were very helpful. And ever since I was in the tech space, I launched TransTac. I launched my own companies. I built Appalachian and Aerial Spaces. And now I'm building a crypto platform. And so I've been able to do so many things just from that one email starting TransTac. And like, it's just, I've been very lucky to kind of continue moving forward.
Yeah, that is really beautiful. I've seen that with doing the podcast. Like when I tap in and I ask people for their knowledge and for their expertise, people are so willing to give it. And I think that a part of my imposter syndrome, and I think it's also being connected to this American educational system where your access to knowledge is so transactional and you have to pay so much of your time and energy and even loan money to get it, that you begin to think that you have to like jump through so many hoops to get the knowledge. But what I've seen as an entrepreneur is like so many people are like even you, like I was like, yo, I just want to pick your brain. You're like, cool. And I mean, I probably sat up here and thought about hitting you up for like a quarter before I actually did it in my own imposter syndrome of like, dang, they're not going to answer me, or what do I have to ask, or I got to have the perfect question. And it was hella chill. Like, I got so much from it. So just all my homies out there, like looking to make that extra leap to that person that you want to connect with that could change your life. Like you said, that moment changed your life. Don't hold yourself back by your fear or what our systems have created in our minds as like landmines that aren't even really there. Like most people are inclusive and willing to do it. So let's talk a little bit about money, because you started to switch into that without me even getting there. What is your relationship to money and abundance, and how are you even able to speak of, like, in the beginning of our interview, you talked about like moving out of the country. Like, how have you been able to, build whatever empire you have? And if you want to share about that, that would be great, in order to be able to even navigate and move in that particular way.
Yes, I love to make money. No offense to anybody who doesn't. I want to destroy capitalism. Let's get it straight. But I don't think it's gonna happen in any time soon. And like, we have to live in this world. And I don't consider myself a honest capitalist or anything like that. I think it's impossible to be a good capitalist person. It's impossible. Capitalism is evil. A horrible system that has ruined, so many lives, and it's destroying our lives. And we can see it happening in a pandemic where we're living in a country where people are literally like being forced to go back to work during a public health crisis because the government is more concerned with making money. And I personally, honestly, we have another time. I think this is the kind of like the downfall of the United States. Coronavirus is really, really revealing how the infrastructure of the country is falling apart, and how capitalism is really destroying any kind of progressive moving forward of the United States of America. And so, but at the same time that I've lived in this country, I've been very lucky to kind of been able to build a small amount of a kind of financial wealth, which actually didn't really happen for the last 6 years of my life. When I finished my PhD, it was the first time that I really kind of experienced anti-trans discrimination, or just discrimination in general, like in the employment sector. I could not find a job. I could not get a job. And I thought that I was supposed to have a job. I was like, okay, I'm going to go become a professor, or, maybe I'll be a research institute or something, I'm well known. I could, people want to work with me, blah, blah, blah. I cannot find anything. And it was like the first time in my life where I was like losing everything. I like had bought a new car before I graduated and it got repossessed. I had to get a roommate in my apartment. I was alone. I had someone living in my house. and I was like sleeping on my own couch while I had somebody paying half the rent here. It was a really difficult time. And it was right before I started Transact, actually. And so it was a really just like this moment of like, wow, if I don't actually build something for myself, there's no way the department that gave me my PhD wouldn't give me a job. They didn't hire me, but luckily they hired another Black trans man, Kai Green, who came after me. I was able to open the door for him. So, even though I didn't get a job at Northwestern, someone else got a job because of the work that I was able to do to open that department up to the possibilities of what it means to be a Black trans man. I experienced a lot of discrimination in that department. It was really, really difficult. And so they didn't give me a job when I graduated, and I begged them. I was like, please, I have nothing. Financial aid is done. I can't find anything. Can I just teach here? Can I get? And they're like, hell no, you cannot teach here. And so having those experiences was like, okay, I'm never going to be, no one's ever going to like take care of Kortney. I literally have to build something for myself. And so started with Transact, was able to build something with that, and gave myself my own first job as a founder of an organization. Transact ran as a nonprofit. So that was really, really cool. Once that kind of sunset, started a for-profit company with a co-founder. We no longer work together. We started working together in 2014, building our own tech company. And we were able to raise VC money, which is very rare for Black folks to do that in the tech space.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
But venture capital money, we got Bloomberg is one of our investors. So we had like major players who were really about our vision and what we were building. So I was able to really kind of understand how money works in a different way, being funded by rich people and like working with really, really rich people and understanding how they were like making money, and just kind of like really like being just peeking to this different world. I think as a person who's starting a company, which is really awesome, but then working alongside folks who have, started major companies and sold their companies and things like that, and been able to like make money from that, was really eye-opening because I learned so much from them. So just really kind of just following what they were doing, learning how to manage money, learning how to set up companies, learning how to make sure I cover myself with my lawyers and things like that, just really doing the right thing. And I've been really lucky to make some things that have brought me a great financial reward in return. I've been able to sell some of my intellectual property that I developed in the tech space. I still self-distribute, still Black. It still makes me money to this day, which is awesome. I own all of the rights to the film. So I still sell it online. I still self-distribute. I sell it to institutions still screen about once a month still. And I still charge for that. So I'm still like in charge of all of my finances and owning all of my IP. And also now I think in my life, I've been very blessed to create things that have helped others build some sort of financial, I wouldn't say wealth, because I think none of us are really wealthy yet. Wealth is
yeah, I was going to say, can you break down what wealth is to you compared to just like I'm making money, right? Like what's the difference there?
Yeah, to me, I understand wealth is something that is generational, and that is what the United States is built on, right? It's generational wealth. Nobody in this country who is wealthy died from just, from day one. And if they did, they probably are a Black American person or someone who's not a white person. But, the idea in this country is that wealth is something that is passed on from family to family. It's something that you're born into. It's something that you can't really acquire. You're born into it. It's already, you're building on your wealth. Whereas I think a lot of folks I know are rich and don't really have that amount of money to pass on to generations. Like if they had a family right now, that family's future family wouldn't be able to benefit from what they have right now. Whereas people who are wealthy, it's like, generation after generation after generation will be okay. They own property. Their names are on buildings. They own assets that are like, that are not just fiat money, like gold and silver and things like that. They own things that also create more money by just owning them. So that's what I considered wealth. I think it's what most people consider to be wealthy. I am working on building. That is my goal. As I, in my 30s and start moving to a new decade in my 40s, I'm really concerned with creating generational wealth for myself and my family. Right now, I work really hard and all my wealth goes to taking care of my family and those that I love. That's the main thing that I want to help do. Like, I don't really buy things. I travel a lot, and that's how I kind of like reward myself for working really hard. But I'm really concerned with building a pot of sustainability for people that I love in my family, in my immediate family. And I guess a lot of my work has been building for others who are not my family or who are my extended family by like, whether that be gender, be like kind of forced community kind of idea. But now I'm really focused on my bloodline in a way that I've never been before. And really kind of centering on accumulating wealth in that way. And that sounds very, very capitalist and like kind of like fucked up in a lot of ways. But I think actually like going through coronavirus in 2020 and seeing how the things that we build into or that we pay for, we pay our taxes, do the right things, that it doesn't really matter, that your government will leave you in a lurch, will leave you hanging, and will only give you $1,200 for 5 months, right? Like with nothing. And so this has been a severe eye opener for me. I'm like, I'm glad I've kind of been going down the path of understanding what generational wealth is and really attempting to kind of build it in my own life. Because this ain't it relying on, or kind of not relying or having hope that like, if you don't have, money to pay rent or food, that you'll be able to be supported as a citizen in this country. And so that's not going to happen. And so, yeah, that's what I've been focusing my sights on kind of. And so I've been doing well for myself by running my own business
and taking care of your ownership and your intellectual property. I mean, I heard you talking about having lawyers, you know what I mean? Really building infrastructure around you.
Money. Exactly.
Back into your business and back into your protection. Yeah, I always tell folks like what I've really learned, I think, from other entrepreneurs is there's so much more power in the network than even the money. Like, now I'm not going to say net worth because I think net worth is actually a big deal, but your network. And, like I would rather have a phone book full of like entrepreneurs who have failed and made it back that I can actually talk to than actually $1 million, right? Because like that's going to go a lot farther. And honestly, probably me as a young entrepreneur, I don't really know what to do with the money, so I'll probably end up spending it all on something I don't need to spend it on.
Exactly.
And that network will probably like get me to that money at some point, and also give me the knowledge I need to build it, right? Like, because it's totally different to get it than to build it. So before we jump into the last segment of the podcast, I have a couple more questions for you. But my next one is really for you to dig deep into this manifestation, because I really, really want to do that on the show. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Like, let's put that on, like let's speak that with the tongue so that it can come true. Like, where do you see your journey in 5 years?
Personally, I plan to be having somewhere with my family and a family that I want to start with my partner somewhere outside the United States. That is for sure. That would be in the next year for sure. Definitely business-wise, I'm just starting a new platform and hope in 5 years by then I will have sold it and have reaped the benefits from that. So that's where I see that kind of going in 5 years. But I love that you are talking about manifestation. I wholeheartedly believe in manifesting everything that we want and desire that we need in our lives. I've been on a spiritual journey for the past year at least. It would more than that, but definitely like really kind of concentrated, focused spiritual journey. And manifesting, or kind of like, yeah, that's been central to my spirituality, like knowing that the universe has more than enough of things that I need and that everyone needs. The abundance is like, there's so much. There's not, there's more than enough money. There's more than enough ideas. There's more than enough like room, for me to thrive, succeed, and do all the things that I want to. It's abundance. It's infinite. It's never ending, right? And so that has been super important to kind of where I want to kind of position myself. And so when I think of myself in the future, I always think of myself where I am at in the present, and kind of realizing that whatever I may need, even in this moment, it will always be there, and it will be there right now. It will also be there 5 years from now. So I just hope in the 5 years that, I'll sell another business and have really kind of laid some roots elsewhere outside of the United States. And I hope to be alive.
I say to that. We need you here. I say to that. We need you here. Alive and well, right? Alive and thriving.
I hope to be alive and well. Yeah. And I hope to have my, physical and mental health, because I can see it being so easily lost in this kind of this nightmare that is COVID-19 every day. Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about this new company that you're working on.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's based off of like trading and cryptocurrency, but what is the company? What's the business idea, and how can folks learn more and support?
Yeah, so I'm a tech guy, and I've been into crypto for a long time. I had Dogecoin for a long time, for years, like since like maybe 2012. And it's really fascinating about virtual currency. I actually owned a few coins last year that I sold, and I made a lot of money from it, and I didn't really understand why I did at the moment. Like, it didn't make sense to me. And so I was like, the work that I was doing with building software, like a lot of colleagues would talk about blockchain, and like I started becoming fascinated with blockchain tech and its kind of use cases. And after having sold some of my coins, which didn't make sense to me why they were so valuable, and also understanding blockchain, I was like, let me like kind of like understand like why the coins were valuable. Because I understand the blockchain technology now. It's still a new technology. It's not really being leveraged in a way. And I actually wanted to utilize blockchain for abolition. And so like I was like really learning more about how I can use blockchain for abolition. And then really got thrown into this world of trading and cryptocurrency trading. And I was like, man, like I get it. Like, wow, I can understand why the coins that I had at that time were worth more than the actual blockchain project that they were representing. And really, I really want to know things, and I was really fascinated about like kind of like this new kind of space of virtual currencies. And so last year, I started learning how to trade, and working in a trading group. And I have a couple of mentors who are one guy, his dad was like a Wall Street trader. So he's really good. He's really, really good. And so I started working with these guys, and I was like, I want to become really good at this. I want to like learn what this is about, and like blah, 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 blah. So now that I've actually become a really, really excellent trader in crypto, and I feel like it was a space that I was meant to be in, because I built a fintech app. And so now I'm like learning about financial markets in a way that I didn't before. So it felt like a natural progression. And so what opened my eyes about it was like, wow, there's so much money being made. Like you can sit at your computer and look at a chart and like, okay, make money in ways that I didn't even know that was possible, right? And I'm not into Forex trading. I know it's trading in general, like trading stocks and Forex wasn't my thing, because I'm more concerned with blockchain. And so like this made sense. And so it was life-changing for me, because I was able to understand a whole new language, a whole new space. And I was like, man, I really wish there was something where for folks like me who may have some understanding of text and blockchain, but don't really understand trading at all and don't really understand how they're connected, there needs to be a space for those folks. Because we're moving towards a virtual currency world. And
that's what I've heard. Is that
coronavirus accelerated it. If coronavirus didn't happen, abolition would still be in operation. and we would still be relying on fiat money to send to bail funds. But now I'm reconceptualizing the whole platform because I'm like, wow, the United States has run out of quarters. Like we ran out of the United States is printing money. We're about to experience hyperinflation, which is why we're headed towards a major depression. And people around the world, countries around the world, are really leveraging blockchain technologies in their in their voting, as well as in their healthcare. And now they're starting to do it with money. And Venezuela is an example. Lots of folks in Venezuela use Bitcoin. South Africa, lots of folks in South Africa use Bitcoin. It's expensive to send money to different places. It's expensive to still use banks. They're very outdated. And so you have virtual currency, and like we're becoming, again, coronavirus, because everything's virtual now. Virtual money is becoming huge. People are like, what? You can buy things without using like actual dollars. And what does that mean? People are like now looking at, what does Bitcoin mean? Bitcoin is becoming more mainstream. You can like, people like, it's being put in TV shows now. People are asking me, what is Bitcoin? And so like, it's in a moment where it's trying to have the introductory of mainstream adoption. So I feel very lucky to have learned for the last year learning about kind of the trading market, because now I'm like, okay, this is a business venture for me. Like, again, I see what's missing, and I'm like, okay, it's missing a platform where folks who are like me and who want to know about blockchain and who didn't know that blockchain projects have virtual currencies attached to them, and that those are tradable, and that people make millions of dollars. Like my buddies who are now my mentors, who are now my friends, like they wake up at 3 a.m. because the market is 24 hours, but like a lot of trading happens in Asia. Because at 3 a.m. they're looking at the charts and like making millions of dollars from their computer, from their home, but like, trading fake money. And I was just like, wow, this is fascinating, guys. I was like, more people need to know about this shit.
So what would you say is like the most you've made in the last year in your trading adventure?
In my trading, so when I had started, my goal was to turn $1,000 to $100,000 to see if I could, part of my trading journey. In the beginning, I lost it all because I didn't know what I was doing. And so lost all that money, and I was like, well, I should probably now learn how to fucking do this. But the coins that I sold, I made about $150,000 just because I had those coins for so long, but I didn't know what I was doing. I just had these coins because I worked in the tech space, and a lot of colleagues of mine had launched projects that had virtual currencies. And so you get free currencies before they were actual thing, before they were like actually being invested in with an ICO. So I had like a ton of different kinds of coins, and I was able to make a nice amount of money, about $100,000. And so I was like, now what should I do with that? I want to learn how to trade myself. But that was the most that I made. And then I started my portfolio with $100 after I lost the $3,000 that I started to learn to trade with. I started with $100 in cryptocurrency, and now I'm up to about 2,000. But that took, and that just took really like learning about risk management. That's the most important, because it's not about making money. It's about not losing your money. That's what I've learned.
Exactly.
Trading is about not losing your money and risk management, because there's infinite ways to make money. It's open 24 hours a day. Crypto moves differently than stocks. A crypto will move 20, 30% in one day. That's amazing. Whereas, stocks, they don't move like that. Forex, I'm not sure. I've never traded that, so I don't know what like the kind of percentage, like how it moves. But crypto, because it's like a new industry, it's unregulated so far, and and the gains, the rewards are amazing. But like, it's a very white space because it's a tech space, and at its core, it's not a like I keep saying, a Forex or a stock market, where even though they're predominantly white spaces, I feel like because they've been around for longer, they're a different type of market. I think people who are not white know a little bit more about them, and even if they don't trade in them, they understand what it means, the stock market, how it's tied to the economies of countries. Whereas cryptocurrency is not. It's not tied to anybody's country. It is not tied to anybody's GDP. It is a global currency that doesn't have any leaders. It's decentralized. It's like all these new things that like a lot of folks don't know. And like I really want to create a platform, which I am creating a platform that provides people who are completely unaware of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency the ability to learn and to start with $100 and turn that into $2,000 and turn that into $10,000. And so I've launched Green Kandle Academy. I'm actually launching this month. I've launched the first part of our website, which is getting folks to sign up for our newsletter. And I am getting 5 folks to learn and trade with me, and I'm providing them with cryptocurrency, $50 each, and they will follow my trades as well as they will learn how to trade with me. And so I really want to, again, provide others the space of this kind of burgeoning market that's happening. And coronavirus was the perfect time because everybody's at home. And the market has been amazing because everybody's been at home. And so everybody's been at home around the world. And so it's a global currency that everybody's kind of been trading for the past few months. And it's been really spectacular. And I just want to create a space where folks can, who are new and don't know anything, can learn about how to do that. And
this is exciting, man. I'm so proud of you. This is really, really exciting. And I hope that I'm selected as one of the 5 because I'm ready to learn too. Like I'm ready to get this money moving. And it's just been cool to see you share some of that journey. And I appreciate you always sharing your failures. Like you're like, yo, I lost all that money. So I realized I had to educate myself. So thank you so much.
I lost that $3,000. Yeah. It's okay. Cause it's like once you're, cause trading is difficult. I mean, I didn't realize as a game taking others. There has to be a winner. There's always a loser. There's a winner. Somebody gets their money taken. And you're trading against
wealth. Yeah,
exactly. You're trading against institutions. So institutions who have programmed bots that are taking money, and then you're trading against the retail traders who've been doing this for years, who are really, really good at it, who know all the patterns, who know all the things. And so I've been in the lab for the past 8 months, literally every 8 to 9 hours a day. I'll read a new trading book. I'll try different things. I'll be in a new trading seminar or something, but I'm consistently learning and wanting to then take that information and make it a little bit more accessible. And I'm really grateful that I have my education because I'm an educator. I'm a teacher. I know how to teach people. And so it makes sense for me to create something where I can take that kind of confusing information that is out there. There's a lot of scams in trading now. Now that I'm in the space, I see that a lot of folks want to take advantage of people because there are such huge rewards in it, right? And so people think man, I'm gonna just go in and flip this 500 to 10,000, which you can do that in an hour, which is amazing. But a lot of folks don't have the skills or know how to do that. And so they may get scammed. And so I'm just man, there's there's one other guy. And again, as an entrepreneur, it's important to know what else is out there. It's important to know who your competitors are. It's important to know who's creating in the space that you want to be in because you want to do something different. And you also want to complement what they're doing because that's how business works. You still want to you want to provide something different, but you want to provide something that's the same, that's familiar, where people will go to you. And so there's another platform where it's crypto education, but it's not necessarily about the trading part. And so I think what I'm doing differently is combining the education with also we're going to be trading in real time. This is how you do it. This is what we're doing, but you're also learning about blockchain at the same time. And so I'm really, really excited to kind of get in there and test it out. And I've been creating content already.
You're a pioneer again. You're a pioneer again. I don't hear anyone talking about it.
Yeah, exactly.
I hear people talking about it, but more still on that. Can we trust it? Is it real? Right? And I think the only person I know who really talked about it clearly was Nipsey Hussle before he passed, rest in peace. And he did a whole interview, talking about how he took I think he took 10,000 and turned it into almost like 1 million, right? But it took over
Yep.
time with cryptocurrency. But that's how he was able to like really get the marathon store going. So I think even in this, you're a pioneer. You're consistently showing that when you tap into knowledge, you always bring it back to community. I mean, we've seen that with all the businesses that you've built. So I really appreciate that. Not only are you an entrepreneur, but you've been consistent and you've been an expert in your own right of making sure that your business connects to your morals. And I think that so much of that has to do with you being a Black trans man. You know what I mean? Like I think you know so much about the value and the resources that people don't have because of your experience. So I'm hella thankful for you. I want to know how the audience can follow you so that they can make sure that they're engaged with your content. And then we're going to jump into Boy Talking Hop.
Yeah, I tweet a lot. You can follow me on Twitter, Fake Rapper.
It's great too.
And,
like tweets a lot and it's also good content.
Thank you. Tweet a lot, I curse a lot. I'm blocked by a lot of famous people. I wear that as a badge of honor because I'm a radical thinker and I appreciate other radical thinkers. And so that's where you can follow me. You can also go to Green Kandle Academy, the GREENKANDLE.academy. That's the website. We are launching at the end of this month and really excited to teach others about tech and blockchain and crypto. And not only but help other people make some money, like make a lot of money. So
Yes.
really excited about that. And that's how you can kind of find me right now.
Great. So Boy Talking Hop is like a fill in the blank section. So I'm going to give you some like sentences. You're going to fill in the blank with whatever come to Kourtney's mind, right? So I might say money is, and you probably would say, I'm balling out right now because you are with the trading. But that's essentially what it is. So are you ready to hop in?
Yep.
All right. So the first phrase is money is. We'll start there.
Confusing.
Sex is
amazing.
Ownership is
spectacular.
My favorite book is
the one I've yet to write.
My favorite food is
ooh, that's a hard one. Oh no, my favorite food is anything that's cooked with love. When people cook for me, it is one of the best things I think that I understand love. So
cooking is your love language. The good home
cook.
Yeah,
exactly.
if you could spend a day with anyone, dead or alive, who would it be and what would you do?
I would love to spend a day with my grandmother. She raised me. She passed when I was 21. I would love to. I think she would think I'm an awesome fucking human being right now. So I would love to hang out with her and show her like all of her, labor of raising me, like the rewards, how awesome a person I became. So
love is
understanding and patience. I know that wasn't one, but
wellness is
important.
Your favorite song is
right now. I'm a Black Coffee fan. He's a DJ. And there's a song he has called "Wish You Were Here." That's my favorite song right now.
And last but never least, Kortney is
learning, and Kortney's beautiful. I'm going to go. Kortney is beautiful.
Ashe, you sure are, fam. Thank you so much for this interview. Thank you for being on the podcast. I'm thinking I'm probably going to have to ask you to come again once your company really is up and running, and we could probably have a whole conversation with you and a couple of other folks I know who are into the trade world. But thank you for sharing your journey and for constantly just living your truth. It's really been amazing to see, and I'm just so thankful that you're here on this planet doing the damn thing and spreading love and spreading knowledge. So thank you so much.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for documenting our histories with your podcast and allowing us space to talk about the things that we do. I'm really grateful for the work that you're doing and for having me as part of that. Thank you so much. This is Kourtney Ziegler, and I'm born obviously incredible, and I'm so grateful to have had this conversation. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Boy Meets Wellness. Stay connected on and off the show by following us online at Boy Meets Wellness. That's boy with an I. Until next time, go be incredible. Thanks for listening to Boy Meets Wellness. Stay connected on and off the show by following us online at Boy Meets Wellness. That's boy with an I. Until next time, go be incredible.